Everyone, Jeremy from Daily Marketing here. Just continuing on with our Facebook and Instagram ads epic. Today I am kind of breaking down this week, actually. The next few episodes going to be breaking down really the features of the ad set. And when it comes to Facebook advertising, the ad set is kind of where most of the action is. So we're going to be going through it piece by piece, or at least the most important pieces. And I'm going to start off today by going through audience. Audience is really probably the single most important part of Facebook outside of the creative. I mean, arguably the actual ad creative itself and then the audience are the two most important parts of Facebook ads. The audience is exactly who you're targeting, right? There's a lot of nuance that comes with, putting together good targets. There's billions of potential combinations that you can do, if not more, in the audience manager. And so, I just wanted to kind of run through it with you and show you kind of some of the common tips and tricks that I use, as well as kind of explain to you how some of this works. So with audience, first off, custom audiences are a beast unto themselves, right? There's you can do lookalike audience or custom audience. So custom audiences, and we went through this a little bit already of how to set up custom audiences, and we'll go more into it later. Custom audiences are audiences of specific people that you set up based on parameters, usually around the pixel on your website or mobile app. Sometimes you can upload audiences. You have to be careful with that you have permission to use that data. But custom audiences are, what it sounds like, just an exact grouping of people based on something. And that could be website action or just people that visited your website, what have you. One thing to know is that when you have a custom audience, you can then turn around and actually narrow based on demographics inside of that. So if I had, 2 million website visitors, right, in my custom audience, I could then narrow to just, I want 18 to 22-year-old people. So then it will do that subset of the custom audience, right? And so just things like that, important to keep in mind. Lookalike audiences, these are percentage-based audiences based off of custom audiences, right? And so if I have a seed group of 10,000 past customers, right, and I tell Facebook you can do 1 to 10%, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's say I want to do a 1% lookalike, commonly abbreviated to LLA, if some of you are kind of digging deeper into this. What I would do is, what I'm saying to Facebook when I say make me a lookalike audience is I'm saying take this seed data that you have of, take of the people that you've matched, give me the people that are 1% most similar to them inside of this inside of the United States, right? And you can do it by any country. It's really interesting. The 1% lookalike is kind of oftentimes the gold standard, right? I will just do the 1% lookalike, no other targeting. And that's kind of usually your best bet. Now, that said, you need a decent sized seed audience, usually of a couple thousand people in order to give Facebook the data it needs in order to properly extrapolate out that 1% lookalike audience. And then it says, so that's at the top, right? Another thing you could do is you could do saved audiences. So if you go through and create all this, you can then hit save audience, and that's an audience that you can reuse a lot. Don't be afraid to do that. Locations, as you go through locations, you can do everyone in this location, people that live in this location, people recently in this location, and people traveling in this location, right? So bear in mind as you do that, as you kind of set that up, you could do travelers, you could do people that live there, people that are just recently in, right? Number of different things. Of the locations, there's some interesting things you can do here, but you don't have to just do, you can do regions like, European Economic Area, Commonwealth of, Independent States, which is like Armenia, Georgia, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperative. You can do App Store regions. iTunes store country, Android paid store country, Android free, emerging markets. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. You can do countries, obviously. You can do that, but what more that you can do there is you can do state, regions, cities, postal codes, addresses, DMAs, congressional districts, things like that. You can also add worldwide or global, right? So a lot of people don't know you can just do worldwide. That just is the entire world, right? Interestingly, it says Skynet in Malaysia is a place, which is amusing. One thing that I've seen people do too, another thing to bear in mind is you can pin drop. So you can pin drop there and you can do mile radiuses from 0 to 50, right? So that's another potential one. You can include it and then you can exclude it too. So, if I wanted to do, let's say, United States, it's sometimes faster to do that rather than typing in 49 other states. I could exclude Colorado. And so, right, red X. So now I'm excluding Colorado, but I'm targeting all of the United States except that, right? So you can layer them like that as well. And then that's always, that's kind of how the location works. Age, and you can add location in bulk should you want to, right? So if you have like a whole thing of, addresses or postal codes, you can add those in bulk. So age, obvious. Gender is obvious. Language, I don't think they have Klingon. But, English, and then it'll even differentiate between US, UK, Spanish, Spain, right? Language is incredibly important. A great way of reaching an expat community if you want to. So now we're getting down here into the detailed targeting. This is where a lot of the options are. One thing I want to go through the connection type first. You can do people who like your page, friends of people who like your page. This is useful if you have a consumer app and you just are assuming that most of the people that you're trying to target are friends with people like themselves, which is a pretty good bet. Apps, people like your app, friends of people, or people use your app, etc. And then events, people that respond to events. So this is actually an interesting strategy I've seen as well, where somebody creates an event, right? And then, you can turn around and people that respond, you can promote the actual event and then just retarget the people that responded to your event, right? As kind of a almost like you set up an event, people say they're going to go, and then after the fact, you can then target them with like conversion ads, right? This is expanding the interest, where it can improve performance. I never click this ever. I tend to find that it makes a campaign's performance worse. So detailed targeting. This is where the action is, and you can exclude based on detailed targeting as well. This is huge. So it breaks down broadly into 4 categories. They're, Facebook categories, always something random. I don't really understand Facebook categories, to be honest. Every time I open it, it's something different. It's always something very strange and very random, right? That said, demographics, you can do education level, right? You can do what somebody's undergrad years were. So you can target people that specifically were in college from one time to another. Financial, you can do income, demographic, income targeting. So top 10% zip codes, top 5% zip codes. Do life events, anniversaries, away from family, away from hometown, people that moved away, like me, and isn't probably, hopefully never going back. Sorry, Yorkville. You can do friends of men with birthdays at 0 to 7 days, right? Very, very useful. Recently moved, friends of newly engaged, friends of newlyweds, people in long distance relationships, people in new jobs, new relationships, engaged, married, recently moved, parents, parents of specific people in specific age buckets, Do U.S. politics, liberal, conservative, very conservative, etc. Relationship status you can do, in a relationship, married, open relationship, separated, all sorts of stuff, right? Work, employers. So if you click employers, you can search, Coca-Cola. Oh, sorry, I can't spell Coca-Cola. And that was actually an interesting one there. Cowboys. What didn't that just pop up? Dallas Cowboys. People that work for the Dallas Cowboys. All sorts of stuff, right? Like, IBM, Google, right? These are only typically going to be larger employers, but, employers nonetheless. Industries that people work inside of, right? Job titles. So if I want CMOs, or let's say CEO. Actually, I think it makes you spell it out. Let's say I'm looking for founders, right? 1.7 million founders, right? Awful lot of you. So things like that. Interest. Now, interest categories are interesting. A lot of people have mixed feelings on interest categories, and here's why. Some of this data could be dated. It's speculated that interest categories is somewhat older data. So, if you liked, I don't know, candy in 2012, do you still like it in 2018? Who's to say? That said, that's speculated, right? The interest categories, though, can be useful. I've had some luck with it, and I find that if you're really at top of funnel and you're trying to prospect and find new customers, interest categories can be very, very useful, right? So, technology, computers, there's all sorts of stuff that you can based on interest categories. Now, behaviors, this is where it gets really interesting. So you can do mobile devices by brand, you can do anniversaries, consumer classifications. That's useful for some countries, right? And so like Mexico, people prefer high value goods, stuff like that. Digital activities you can do on OS, Facebook payments users. Now, this is an interesting one. Page admins of specific kinds of pages. The internet browser that people use, their primary email domain, small business owners, technology early adopters. That's one I use a lot. Expats, multicultural affinity. You can't actually target based on race, but it's people who, live and align with a cultural affinity, right? Purchase behavior, engaged shoppers. I use this one a ton. This is people that have clicked the call to action button, shop now, in the past week. Travel, frequent travelers, international travels, return from travels, commuters, right? I use behaviors a lot. Now, behaviors used to have a lot more in it. It used to have third-party data, but Facebook has been phasing that out for a variety of reasons. So this is kind of how, this is how detailed targeting really works, right? And so let's just say, I am in the United States. I have a high value product. So I'm just going to run through this real quick, how I would set up. And what I want to show you, I want to do this because I want to show you how I layer this stuff, right? So let's say I have a product that's just really meant for just extremely wealthy people. I'm going to do top 5% of zip codes in the US, right? Okay, so that takes me down to 11 million people across the entire US. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow the audience, right? So it's saying you have to match this and you also have to match this. So this is a subset of the first one, right? So I'm going to say, okay, I want really rich people, and I want, let's say, I'm a freelance marketer. I want to target wealthy business owners, right? So I've got this. I'm going to go to digital activities. I'm going to go to page admins, and I'm going to say, business page admins. So you live in the top 5% of the US. zip code, and you have your business page admin. So I'm going to narrow that even further then. And so I'm going to, demographics, right? I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go back to financial. I'm going to go to income. I'm not going to go to income. I'm going to go to, back down to my behaviors, right? And there's some interesting ones inside of here too that I didn't even touch on. So, I'm going to say small business owners inside of that. So now I've got 65,000 people. So these people live in the top 5% zip codes. They are page admins. They are small business owners. And, I really typically don't want to go lower than a number like this. Like the ideal number is usually about 100,000 up to 1 million. That said, something like this, it's all right. I would say, if I'm going to browse even more, I'm going to say, marketing, right? Maybe they have an interest in marketing, but there's a specific behavior. So somebody that's used the marketing API, that's a really great way to get, get like somebody that's a developer, right, and is using the API. I'll just do the broad interest marketing. So 37,000. I wouldn't go any lower than that. So now I've got wealthy small business owners that, are admins of their page and are interested in marketing. That's about as defined of an audience as I could want for my sort of services. And I encourage you to follow a similar process. Again, usually you want to end up between 100,000 and 1 million. And that's because Facebook uses machine learning in order to properly, in order to optimize your ads. And so you want to give it a broad enough audience so that it could find the people that are right for you. But, I think that, in certain circumstances, it can make sense to go below, always be testing, right? And so, yeah, this is kind of how I would set up an audience. And this is one of the most important parts of Facebook. And so, I encourage you all to kind of take a deep look. There's so many different interests and things like that. I strongly encourage you to kind of play around with this and think about, really think about who your customer is. And then use that to guide you in the audience creation process. So thank you all for watching. Happy marketing, everyone.